right, I'm Nate.
And I'm Mike.
And due to some technical difficulties, we have both just lit up our cigar. I'm about an inch in, but Mike will tell us what we're smoking.
We are smoking a Cohiba Black, and the size is a Robusto, because I like Robustos.
Yes, and I was going to say that usually, as long as we're not in the bedroom, we do whatever Mike likes. But the first couple puffs off of this cigar were very tasty, not really bitter at all. And then now being an inch in, I don't know. I feel like it's a really decently made cigar here.
See, and I just, mine went out, and I had to relight, and I'm about a quarter inch in. So from that, everybody can tell who was having the difficulties. Our third co-host decided to chew up my microphone and my headphones, so I've had to make a do with a different setup.
Yeah, we'll have to start a third co-host destruction GoFundMe or something.
Oh, we are making her a kennel.
Okay.
Because yeah, she was naughty over the weekend when I was gone.
Yes, and what were you doing when you were gone?
I was paddle fishing.
And I saw pictures. Now, what do you do with those? Do you eat them? Do you throw them at friends?
You eat them. I actually today I filleted up. I didn't fillet the fish. I brought it to the fish cleaning station, and but I packaged it, cut it up, and cleaned the red off, and packaged it. I got 8 sandwich bags full, something like that. So.
And what is it? Is it comparable to another kind of fish that our listeners may or may not have tried?
It's white, firm, and flaky, but it has fat in it, and you have to get that fat out, otherwise it's real fishy. But it's, similar to like a halibut, something like that. Except halibut tastes good without having to doctor it up.
Okay.
Paddlefish, you have to get that fat out so you can boil it or brine it or something like that. Grill it. If you grill it, it'll cook the fat right out of it.
Okay. Do they were quite a bit larger than I kind of thought when you said paddlefish. Of course, I've never been paddle fishing, so I wasn't sure if you were fishing for a fish called a paddlefish or using like a paddle board to go fishing. Yes.
It is a fish called a paddlefish, and I caught a little one.
Okay, but they're big. I mean, they look big.
Oh, yeah, they're huge. I mean, the one I caught was 18 pounds, but, you can routinely get them 60 pounds. That's a pretty normal sized paddlefish. The records vary, but they can get upwards of 140, 150 pounds as the largest, they get. But I have a picture. I caught a 28-pounder a couple years ago, and it was right next to an 80-pounder, and it looked so small. And that 28-pounder was twice as big as that 18 that I caught. As far as size.
So, do you need a deep sea pole? Do you need a special pole for those?
Oh yeah. I have a 10-foot ugly stick.
Okay.
With a big salt striker reel, and I think I have 30 or 40-pound monofilament.
Okay.
So
my little walleye rod wouldn't do it, huh?
No, I don't think so.
I've got a musky rod and reel. Would that do it, or would I need something bigger still? Probably.
I mean, it would do it if you did catch a 70-pounder. That's the thing, is that you're snagging them. You cast into the river with a weight and a number 12 treble, and you try to snag them.
Okay.
So you don't know what you're gonna get. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea. You could snag into a 100-pounder. You could snag into a 10-pounder. So a musky rod would definitely handle a 28-pounder or a 30-pounder, but probably not a 70-pounder.
Yeah.
And they'll jump out of the water like a marlin. I mean, it's pretty impressive when they fight. Yeah. Yeah, they don't like getting jabbed. Shocker, right?
Yeah, surprise.
But
yeah, we'll have to go sometime.
Absolutely. Anytime. I think this is my 6th or 7th year.
Okay.
In a row going. Other than they canceled it 1 year for COVID.
Yep.
But
Because the fish were worried for their safety.
yes, the fish were very worried. But yeah, it's interesting.
What's our main topic today then?
I think our main topic is going to be our favorite historical fact and or historical period. I have 2 facts.
Okay, perfect. I think
yeah.
before we get into that, though, we should talk about a little bit of legislation that's kind of working its way through. And
Okay.
and I don't think it's the one you think that it's going to be. I wanted to talk about the FDA, and they're banning menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars.
Oh, I have not heard of this.
Well, they're trying to keep cigarettes and cigars out of the hands of children. And so they're banning menthol cigarettes, which makes sense, I guess, because it's like I don't smoke cigarettes, and I haven't smoked a menthol cigarette that I'm aware of, but they taste kind of minty. And then I was really worried because we were talking about doing the CAO flavor off, and I was thinking, well, are those going to be banned under these new rules? And so I did some digging for our listeners who might not have done digging or might not have heard about this. And they're really just banning like grape, cherry, anything that's overly very Swiss or Swedish. Not Swedish
so
like
they're
the country,
banning blunts.
but they're banning cigars with a primary flavor additive.
I see. So they're banning blunts. That's what I'm picking up here.
Yeah, so just like the United States government made laws that somehow made pizza a vegetable, they are now making blunts and Swisher Sweets legally cigars.
I see. Well, that's interesting. I remember when they banned flavored cigarettes, and that really bummed me out because I used to get a brand of cigarettes called Sweet Dreams, and they were German-made, and they were chocolate-flavored. And they had a couple different other flavors, too, but I liked the chocolate ones. And I really loved those things. They were a nice little treat every now and again.
Yeah.
And, I liked them.
Yeah. Well, I
Interesting
think how
that
we
they're
should.
not going to ban the vape juice, since that's from
Oh,
what I
that's
understand,
not
what the youngins do
dangerous
these
at
days.
all. That's not dangerous at all, Mike.
Sure, sure.
Unless you buy those vape cartridges from like the 7-Eleven, then they explode in your lungs or something. If the news headlines are to be believed. But I would hope that none of our listeners would do such a thing, and they would go to like a reputable online shop or something.
Yes.
And not go to the 7-Eleven for your fix. But I think for our historical facts, tidbits, periods, whatnot, since you have 2 and I just have 1, why don't you lead us off? Then we'll do mine, and then we'll wrap up with yours.
Perfect. Both of mine are relevant to current politics, interestingly enough. As everybody knows, there's perennial things that Americans all fight about. And both of these historical documents pretty much make the debate pointless, but there's a group of people that like to just deny reality and pretend like they don't exist.
Me when a work email comes through. This email does not exist. You have not found me.
So, the first is the Treaty of Tripoli, which was signed in 1796 while John Adams was president, one of the founding fathers. FYI, for those who are not Americans.
And
John Adams
not
was the
his
second
son,
president.
not his son John Quincy Adams,
Not John
who was
Quincy.
also president.
Who else? No, the OG John Adams.
OG.
My favorite president. He's my favorite president and definitely my favorite founding father. Interesting character. But the Treaty of Tripoli was what the United States signed with a bunch of Barbary pirates who were seizing Americans and were enslaving them. And America didn't want white American citizens to be enslaved in Africa. So we started a war with these pirates, basically. And they were Muslim pirates. So original treaty was made in Arabic, and then it was translated into English, and the United States ratified it. And ultimately, the Islamic treaty or the Arab treaty in Arabic and the treaty in English were not the same treaty. So they re-signed a new treaty, I believe in 1806. Excuse me, 1805. One second here. So it's very interesting. And it was signed, unanimously passed by the Senate. And all those senators were, of course, founding fathers, given the time period. The reason why all this background information is relevant is because in the Treaty of Tripoli, which have you heard of the Treaty of Tripoli, Nate?
I've heard of the shores of Tripoli.
Yes.
And the Treaty of Tripoli does sound vaguely familiar, though I couldn't tell you with any certainty what it had to do about, and I wouldn't have known it was having to do with pirates until you told me just now.
Sure. So the important part to our current situation was that the English translation, or the American version, has an Article 11. And Article 11 has John Adams's view of what the separation of church and state is. So Article 11 reads, and this was unanimously passed by the founding fathers and endorsed by a founding father president, remember.
Yes.
So, as the government of the United States of America is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character or enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslimin, aka Muslims, and as the said states never entered into any war or act of hostility against any Mahometan nation, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. Isn't that interesting?
I think I know now why they don't teach the Treaty of Tripoli in government-run schools.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I should say in, Christian indoctrination churches.
Right. It's insane that a document like this exists and people argue about it. And interestingly enough, modern people argue that it should be discounted because it wasn't in the Arabic version of the treaty. Even though it was in the English version that everybody read and everybody signed. The treaty's only 2 pages long. So yes. OG treaty, very, very simple.
Yeah, it's not the Apple terms and conditions.
No, it was not. You can look up what would it be called, a PDF version of it, and there's only 12 articles in the treaty, and they're all two or three sentences long. So, yeah, it's not exactly complicated to understand what was going on. But
I can't believe they had PDFs back then.
I know, right? Yeah, John Adams wanted it uploaded to a PDF.
He put it in the Founding Fathers cloud.
Yes. I just thought of a third fun fact, but we can get to that later.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't believe this is always a hot topic even today.
Yeah,
with religious types.
Even without the Treaty of Tripoli, which I did do some researching on whether or not our country was, quote unquote Christian or not, and even without the Treaty of Tripoli, surprise, it's not. Most of the founding fathers didn't consider themselves Christian, for one. Thomas Jefferson actually wrote the Thomas Jefferson Bible, where he took all of the miracles out of the New Testament, and it was basically just more like a philosophy book for him of guiding principles, and none of what he considered to be kind of like the magic spells and things like that. But I think they were is it Unitarian? Is that what
Adams was Unitarian?
Unitarian. Yep. So they were mostly not Christians.
No,
in the strict sense.
No, not. And Ben Franklin certainly wasn't a Christian.
He flew
At least
that
not in any practical sense.
Yeah, he flew that kite up to try and lightning strike God.
Mm-hmm.
All right, are you ready for my fact?
Absolutely.
And luckily for me, my fact coincides with one of my favorite historical periods, which is the Lewis and Clark expedition, the westward expansion. And I'm very, very pro Lewis and Clark. I'm all about stealing land from the native populace. And okay, so somebody's going to take that and make a clip so when I run for president later, I won't be able to get any votes. But I'm not really for that. And actually, I read one of my favorite books about Lewis and Clark. I went on a huge Lewis and Clark spree last year. I found all these books. I researched them. Don't Bother with Stephen Ambrose. Sorry, Stephen. Or not sorry. I guess he's very divisive in the historian community.
Yes, he is.
He'll write about anything, basically. But I read one of my favorite ones was Lewis and Clark Among the Indians, and it was less about them getting from point A to point B, but how their Native American relations went. And they basically are a very good case study for how it should be done. And they were very, very good with all of the tribes that they encountered. And they were very friendly with all the tribes they encountered. And they had to be out of necessity for one point. But Thomas Jefferson gave them the edict to go and be nice to these tribes and learn about these tribes. And to learn about the native populations that were now under U.S. rule, more or less. Or within U.S. lands, however they kind of, phrased it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in reading these books, and I've got a slew of suggestions if anybody is interested. But Lewis and Clark Among the Indians was a very good one, and it really kind of opened my eyes to all of the things that they actually did. Because in most common conversation, Lewis and Clark, oh yeah, they went and found the west side of the country, which isn't really what they did. They were trying to find the quickest overland route to the west side. They knew there was a west side. But what I read in all of these books, they had a little addendum either at the beginning or in the back talking about Sacagawea.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite historical fact is if you read all the journals, and they're not just the Lewis and Clark journals, it's the Lewis and Clark Expeditions journals, because they encouraged every member to keep a journal. Now, every member didn't necessarily, or they didn't write as often as Lewis and Clark did, but they all wrote journals. And these notes about Sacagawea were basically, okay, I know we have to mention Sacagawea, but if you read the journals, she actually doesn't really do anything. She was 16 years old with a newborn. She had her French fur trapper husband/owner. We weren't even sure if she was a slave or if they were married or whatever. But his name was Charbonneau. And she was, I guess what they figured was she was kind of kidnapped from her home tribe by another tribe, and then somehow got sold or married to this Charbonneau fur trapper, French fur trapper, and hadn't been home since she was maybe 12 or 10 or 8, somewhere. I'd be really young. And they get out there, and so everybody says, oh yeah, if not for Sacagawea, the expedition wouldn't have survived. But they go out there, and they happen to be standing in the backyard of her tribe. She doesn't recognize any of the landmarks, looks up across the river and sees her brother or cousin or something, and says, we're here. And that's basically all that there is about her in the journals. One of the two kind of adopted or quasi-adopted or educated her son, her and Charbonneau's son. So I wanted to look up why we minted a coin for Sacagawea, the dollar coin, Sacagawea dollar coin, why everybody loves Sacagawea when there's really no historical evidence that she did a whole lot of anything. Now, maybe she did, but not enough to warrant a lot of text in the journals.
Sure.
So here's what I found out. I found out that the Lewis and Clark expedition, if you're somebody who likes to romanticize history, if you want to create fiction, if you want to create a dramatic work based on the Lewis and Clark expedition, it's a shitty thing to try and base anything off of, because you know what? They went all the way out, all the way back, and they lost one person due to appendicitis.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't... I mean, yeah, sure, they encountered like a bear. Some of the tribes, like the situations got a little like sticky. But really there's no death. Not a whole lot of excitement in terms of modern Hollywood, or even
Really?
not modern Hollywood.
I guess I've never read any of the memoirs.
Yeah, I would, you know what, I'd say I'd pick up Lewis and Clark Among the Indians. That's probably your best bet to kind of shine a whole new light on what they did. But they didn't, like, there was really no danger. And so so people started romanticizing it and putting out fictional versions, you know, where Sacagawea was the one part of the love triangle between, you know, Clark and Lewis and stuff, and Charbonneau was some kind of slaver and whatever. But what I found out was in 1893, a historian named Elliot Cowes, and it looks like Coues, and the Coues deer is actually named after him, but it shouldn't be pronounced Coues deer, it should be pronounced Cowes deer. So Elliot Cowes, he's not a historian. He's an army surgeon, and he was an avid traveler to the expedition sites. But what he did was he redrew Sacagawea's character, increased her participation in the journey, and it says that his work strayed widely from what was originally recorded about the expedition. And those alterations that he made blossomed into expedition fiction. And here is probably the most important part. That pro-feminist arguments contributed to the uplifting of Sacagawea's character, and then anti-French sentiment was used to turn the fur trapper, who did a lot more of the guide work, into a kind of a crass and terrible person. Because there was a lot of anti-French sentiment at the time, and I guess the pro-feminists really liked the idea that there was a 16-year-old female that saved the expedition, even though that's not true.
Interesting. That reminds me of Washington Irving making up the myth that Columbus set sail to prove the earth was round.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a complete falsehood. But people believe it.
I thought he set sail to rape and pillage.
Well, kind of. That was kind of the goal. Just not on the continent he landed on.
Well, yeah. I have another little tidbit about Columbus, real quick, is that they were in, what was it? They landed where? South America, right?
Yeah, it was a Hispaniola.
Yeah, and they were raping and pillaging, and the population was like, "Whoa, wait a second. We thought you came here like as gods, but you're clearly just a bunch of horny assholes." And because they knew the star charts and everything, they knew a lunar eclipse was coming. And so they said, well, if you don't let us continue raping your wives, we're going to blot out the sun or whatever. And so like 2 days later, the eclipse happened and they got to go back to raping all the women.
That's horrible. Horrible, but, amusing.
Well, what do you do?
Right. I wasn't there.
It's in the past. I'm sorry.
Right. It's I'm not directly responsible for that.
But maybe it's a good lesson in stay in school and don't do drugs, because then you'll know when the next eclipse is, and you can not be taken advantage of if you're on the weaker side, or
Sure. Maybe it's a good lesson about critical thinking and be questioning charlatans.
So before your next tidbit, I'm about, 3/4 of an inch from the wrapper here, which I'm about to peel off. But so far it's been very steady, very consistent.
Mine as well. I'm about halfway through.
Okay, it's not overly dark, but it has nice characteristics. I think nice,
it's
kind of complex
dark.
flavor.
It's not super sweet, but it's not not offensive by any means. It's just pleasant. I was expecting that. I've had this particular cigar before.
Okay.
Cohiba is a very popular brand, but I don't.
Well, I see why.
I don't care for them because they usually don't have a lot of character. They're just kind of a one note, pleasant. It's good, but it's just like.
Yeah, it's pleasant. It's not. I don't think it's the best one we've smoked. No, but it's certainly one that I might keep just for kind of a go-to on a day where I don't have anything else to smoke, I suppose.
Right, something good to give somebody who doesn't smoke a lot of cigars, but they want to try a real cigar.
Yeah, I mean they've got the brand cred. Everybody's heard of Cohiba. Mostly, that's into cigars anyway.
Oh, absolutely, they're very famous. So it's mainstream, borderline.
Yep.
Kind of like Omega watches or something. Like everybody knows about it. So anyway, I guess speaking of charlatans, my next two are also about American politics and charlatans and people lying. So we're going to fast forward in American history about 60 years to right before the Civil War.
Where could this possibly be going?
So, again, for anybody who is listening to us who's not an American, we still have these debates 150 years after our Civil War about the causes and motivations of the political leaders.
It was states' rights. It was states' rights.
Yes, it was states' rights, and the average Confederate soldier was fighting for his state and his culture and his freedom.
All these black people in chains back here. Don't pay attention to them. States' rights.
Right. It's called the Lost Cause myth for those who are not aware, and it's like a romanticization of the motivations of the Confederate forces. And we're, of course, both Yankees, and Minnesota lost a significant portion of its soldiers in the Civil War. So I do have a slanted view as a warning for everybody else. And my family's been in the North since the 1650s, so that definitely skews my perception a little bit.
And I went to college in Oklahoma where everybody called me a Yankee, and I did some checking, and guess what? Oklahoma, not in the Civil War. So... they weren't there. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, they weren't involved, but Southern culture is spread. So anyway, my second little favorite fact here is a little thing called the Cornerstone Speech. And the Cornerstone Speech was made March 21st, 1861, which is shortly before the start of the Civil War. And it was made by the future Vice President of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens.
Ooh. Boo. Boo.
Ooh, yes. So it's called the Cornerstone Speech because basically the guy was trying to lay the cornerstone in the speech for the foundation of the Confederacy. And it was very interesting. So here's a direct quote from the speech. The new Constitution has put at rest forever all the agitating questions relating to our peculiar institution, aka African slavery as it exists among us, the proper status of the Negro in our form of civilization. This was the immediate cause of the late rupture and present revolution. Jefferson in his forecast had anticipated this as the rock upon which the old Union would split. He was right. And on and on and on and on and on.
I'm glad he put it to rest. I mean, thank goodness. Let's all read it, and then we can stop arguing about it.
Right. Yeah. It's like in the speech he said, "Our new government's foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world, based upon the great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. So,
Well, I don't like that, but I mean, if he knows what he's talking about, I just have to blindly accept it, I guess.
I don't agree with that, obviously.
No, me either. I was doing a parody of the people on the internet, and they're well, I read this. I don't quite like it, but it must be true.
Oh, yeah, it's like, so, it's kind of like the Treaty of Tripoli. It's so blatant and obvious that anybody who does any amount of research for themselves and who has an open mind knows that the South was fighting to preserve slavery.
I don't know. That still kind of sounds like states' rights to me.
Yeah, states' rights, which is now still a boogeyman in many ways. Not all the time, obviously. I'm a states' rights person myself, but
I like states' rights. I believe in state rights, but I don't believe in state rights to subjugate an entire population based on race.
Sure. Well, obviously, right? I shouldn't say sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Okay, Nate. Okay.
I support states' rights because from working around the country with different people from around the country, I kind of came to the understanding that the United States is an empire and that each state is kind of like a nation, and we're radically different from one another. Minnesota, Wisconsin, and North Dakota are radically different, and they're certainly radically different than Louisiana and Arkansas, or Mississippi. Like those places are not anything alike in culture, just because we share a similar language.
Yeah.
For those who aren't
and I'll say, like, even within the upper Midwest here, like Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, we all kind of like hate each other. Or give each other grief about, oh, you're from Minnesota, oh, you're from Wisconsin, oh, you're in the Dakotas. You can loop in, like, Iowa and Illinois sometimes too. But by and large, like, if there's like some Southerner up here, we're going to defend each other to that Southerner,
oh, absolutely.
So we've got kind of a shared culture, even though we have little like fractures or good-natured ribbing between the different states. And even like within the state, if you're in the city center like I am, versus Mike or James in somewhere else,
northern Minnesota.
Yeah, you still get some differences, but then we're Minnesotans. We're living here.
Oh, absolutely. But for those who don't live up north, my local news puts subtitles on people from the South when they have them on the news show. So if they cover something going on in the South and they have an interview with somebody, they put subtitles because a lot of people cannot understand Southern English, the Southern dialect.
Sometimes they just put subtitles on black people, and you can understand them just fine. And you're like, why though with the subtitles?
I guess I've never noticed that, but I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. I know that some of the Southerners, I never personally have a difficult time understanding them, but I worked with a lot of Southerners in the oil industry. But I can see why they put subtitles on, because my nieces and nephews probably can't understand,
And I do watch quite a few foreign films and things, and every once in a while is just like, usually I'm pretty good if they're speaking English, but they've got the accent. But sometimes it's like I have to go back and flip the subtitles on to say what the hell were they talking about there, especially if they get like agitated or they're like passionate.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's the same when I get drunk, Yeah,
I wish you came with
northern
subtitles.
Accent gets stronger. Oh, Siri barely understands me on my phone. It's crazy. I've had an iPhone since forever, and they still has a hard time understanding what I want. But anyway, so that's the cornerstone speech. And again, it's like an issue. I still don't understand. We're arguing about it today with the crazy Confederate flags and people up here.
Let's. Why don't we talk about the Confederate flags and the Confederate statues for a little bit? Because that should be just far enough out of kind of the popular focus or the mainstream focus in the news right now, especially with certain leaked documents from the Supreme Court. But how do you feel about them tearing down Confederate statues and kind of banning the Confederate flag?
Well, first of all, the Confederate flag is a lie. It was not a Confederate battle flag, and it wasn't a flag of the Confederacy. It was a flag that was resurrected by the Ku Klux Klan to wave around and terrorize black people.
Now, wait a second here, Mike. The Ku Klux Klan, they're a states' rights advocacy group, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I hope everybody knows I'm being incredibly sarcastic.
Yes.
With that. So
again,
no offense
I don't know.
to anybody.
I'm guessing that all of our listeners are North American.
We do have listeners overseas, though, Mike.
Do we really?
We do.
Interesting. Well, hello, overseas listener.
Or bienvenue.
Oh, okay, yeah. But yeah, the KKK, short for Ku Klux Klan, is a white supremacist organization that's ebbed and flowed over the years, and they've been embraced by Hollywood in the past.
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation, the first American blockbuster shown by Democratic President Woodrow Wilson, president of Princeton.
I did not buy tickets to go see that, so I'm in the clear. My conscience is clear.
No, I've never seen it. I kind of want to watch it.
I've seen clips from it in film school.
Sure.
It is pretty propaganda-y.
Oh, I can imagine that the super racist Woodrow Wilson.
But is it more racist than Disney's Song of the South? I don't know.
I actually have a bootleg copy and I haven't watched it yet.
You mean you have a legal copy you legally acquired through the course of legal daily citizen activities?
Yes, I legally acquired it, and it is supposedly a German copy because they sold it there.
Why wouldn't they? And
why wouldn't they?
My grandma was full-blooded German, so I'm like, I love some German things, but sometimes it's like, Germany, man, it was 2 world wars you started.
Well, my next fact is about that particular incident that has not been named yet.
Well, good segue. Let's go.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Perfect. So I found this out when I was in college, going for history, and I had to write myself a little paper, and I wrote a paper about Holocaust denialism, which was a pretty hot topic like 20 years ago. I don't know how hot it is now, but I know
you
that
still see it making the rounds, though. Like every once in a while, a politician or a celebrity gets busted because they either denied that the Holocaust happened or they compared something incredibly mundane and trivial to the Holocaust.
Absolutely. I know that the alt-right, they love Holocaust denial. They love it. They love it. I don't know why it's so popular amongst that certain sect of right-wingers, but they enjoy it for some reason. So my fun fact was that the American government, upper levels, knew that the Holocaust was going on early on, like late 30s, early 40s, before we being the United States, entered the war. And FDR kept this information tight to his clothes, to the point where Eisenhower...
So is this? I'm sorry, just so that I'm clear and our listeners are clear. Is this something true, or is this something Holocaust deniers are saying?
No, this is something true.
Okay.
That
I just wanted to clear that up.
That defeats the argument of the Holocaust deniers. So this was a state secret, to the point where Eisenhower, who was the leader of the Allied forces in Europe, once the Americans got involved, he was not aware that the Holocaust was going on. So when British and American troops, started liberating Holocaust camps, he started getting this information, and he had a hard time believing it. He went onto the ground, and he saw what was happening. He could barely believe it, especially since he was a high-level member of the government.
Wasn't he president or something?
He became president.
Yeah.
So he, in his infinite wisdom, started documenting their taking over the camps and taking pictures of the the prisoners and taking pictures of the bodies and taking pictures of the bone piles and taking pictures of the hangings and taking pictures of the tortured victims and taking pictures of the Nazi propaganda and of the barracks and everything.
They actually sent. They sent and I should know off the top of my head. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, or I would have looked it up. But you can't actually get it in America. You have to buy this documentary that was shot in one of the Holocaust camps, in one of the concentration camps. They sent, I want to say, like Stanley Kubrick to go film it because they thought nobody's going to believe this. Like, these are horrors beyond anyone's imagination. Nobody's going to believe this. So they brought in a big Hollywood director,
sure,
like famous, to go film this stuff, and it's cost prohibitive to pick up because you can't get it here, so you have to order it from overseas, and they're the only ones with the footage.
You're saying that in the land of the free, home of the brave, our government is censoring precious information?
No, it's states' rights.
So anyway. That's not funny at all. We're talking about a very serious topic, but
I know. I'm not trying to poke light at what happened or whatever, but
no.
I think
I'm poking fun at the people who deny the Holocaust. Is what I'm doing.
And those people who deny those things, deny that we're not actually a Christian nation. Those are the people suppressing this sort of information, and they're high enough up where the average American, it's awful lot of work to get to some of these things.
Well, it can be I'm still not to my fun fact yet.
Yes, I'm
sorry. The only
sorry.
reason why I know about this is because I was a history major in college and had to write a paper on it.
Yes.
So I had to go and find, original sources. So anyway, Eisenhower had the notion that people in the future would deny the Holocaust because it's unbelievable, even to him, and he was there.
Yeah.
So the Eisenhower ordered all these documents to be created, pictures, apparently a film. But the fun thing, or the fact, is that anyone can go to the Eisenhower Library, which is a government-run institution. You can go onto the website, and you can see the images from the Holocaust.
Okay.
You can go to the Eisenhower Library, you can go on the website, and you can see the proof that the Holocaust is real. And it's pretty gruesome. Some of them, you're talking...
Yeah.
Piles of ashes mixed with bones, mass graves, all sorts of stuff. Pictures of Eisenhower and Patton and Bradley on tour at the concentration camps, like pictures of them there,
Yeah.
And so if it was a pretty big cover up, back when I was paying attention, it was always like, oh, they're making it up, or oh, it's a conspiracy. And it's like, you have pictures of these generals next to mass graves open with bodies. That's pretty incredible.
Well, they're kind of the same of the same cloth as the people who deny the moon landing, and they say, "Oh, it was faked with computer imagery." And then you look at CGI from like 2005, and you're like, "How did we even watch this?" Mm-hmm. With some CGI. Yeah, I can't imagine denying that, because it shouldn't be like a political thing. Like, people died, like people's entire families were wiped off of the planet. Entire lines of families, like family generations, like just ended. And it's not about you, whether or not you think it did or didn't happen. You're minimizing somebody else's experience, somebody else's family experience, somebody else's tragedy,
Sure. I mean, it doesn't benefit anybody politically that I can understand, but yet people want to fight about it, or they want to use it. They want to manipulate it to make it a political point. To a certain extent, I understand why denial of the Holocaust against the Native American population is still going on, because that is politically potent in some cases, which is a total crap. That's a long history of things going over 400 years. And I could do research, and we could talk about that someday, I guess. But even I know people that were at the residential schools where they tried to, kill the Indian and save the man was their motto.
Yeah.
It's like
the re-education. They
Right.
did all that, and they've been doing that too more recently. And this is more politically charged than the Native American kind of re-education camps, but like the gay conversion centers, like those therapy centers.
oh, right, like Michelle Bachmann's husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Michelle Bachmann was a congresswoman from Minnesota who has a husband who is clearly a closeted homosexual.
Yeah. And I actually met Michelle Bachmann.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How was she?
Except for, asking if I thought her husband was attractive. I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. I met her, but I was working for the Boy Scouts of America, and they are not, and recently they've been trying to change because they've been forced to, but they have not historically been an atheist or alternative lifestyle friendly organization. So I was not able to get into the weeds with her, as it were, on any political things. So it was just more of a, hi, nice to meet you. And then under my breath, I hope you burn in hell. If there is such a place.
Well, Michelle Bachmann's district had Stearns County in it, which not coincidentally has the highest rate of incest in the whole state. So
Huzzah. Keep it in the family.
That's right. But yeah, so those are all, I'm sure that my American listeners noticed a slant of my fun facts because they all go against a certain narrative that is told in the United States by certain people.
Yes. I have one founding father fun fact that
Okay.
I think you might enjoy. You might know it, you might not. The first dinosaur fossil was discovered after George Washington died, so he had no idea there were even dinosaurs on the planet.
I did not know that. I know that when I went to Mount Vernon, it was summertime. And for those who don't know, Minnesota summertime, especially up north, very humid and very hot. 90 degrees, 100% humidity.
Well, that's not hot for Florida or Texas or Arizona.
No, it's not. It's not hot for those places, but it also gets to be negative 30 here for like a month. But just as a frame of reference, it's 100% humidity and 90 degrees where I live in the summer. And I went there during the summer, and I thought I was going to die in Virginia there. It was absolutely horrible. I definitely came away thinking that George Washington was an asshole with his slaves. Because it's like, who the fuck could consciously make people work in this shit? It's awful. It's just horrible.
Yeah, but I guess like everybody was working in that shit. And from the book we talked about a couple episodes back, The Black Rednecks and White Liberals, he actually talked about George Washington and his kind of treatment of slaves.
Sure.
And he was actively buying slaves because in his will, he gave all of his slaves freedom.
Yes.
But that doesn't change the weather.
No, it doesn't change the weather.
In DC, and actually for about a 6 or 7 year period, I was going to Washington DC every other year, for reasons I can't talk about now, because they've got a contract out on me. But no, it was with the Boy Scouts. I would go, and we took a family trip, and so I went like every other year for the Boy Scouts, and but I got to see a lot of DC that way, which is pretty cool.
Oh, it's very cool. I would definitely want to go back to go to the Smithsonian specifically. I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that.
I liked the Air and Space. That one's really cool.
Oh, I didn't go there. I went to the two art museums and
those are
American
cool
History
too.
Museum. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean they're all cool. Like,
oh yeah, it's you could spend a lot of time there, weeks and weeks probably.
So unfortunately, I'm done with my cigar. I think it was very good. Definitely not like a favorite. I wouldn't say favorite. I would say it's very firmly in the slightly above average.
See, and now I have about an inch and a half left, and I'm getting a very ashy, sour taste out of the cigar.
Okay. Mine kind of went a little sour, and I just put it out because I've got about an inch left. Maybe about an inch and I don't know, maybe about an inch and a half. So I just put it out because I'm like, okay. But it was, like the pull was getting very hot, and I was like, it's probably about done. So, but I think by and large, I would smoke a Cohiba over our Bin Maduro.
Not if I would smoke tequila on it.
See, I would smoke our tequila Bin Maduro over Cohiba any day.
Absolutely, me too.
Yes. So yeah, that's it. I think Cohiba Black. If you want a good, just middle of the road, you want to try a name brand cigar, you want to get off of, bin cigars or whatever. You've got a special event, and you've got people that want to try cigars. Cohiba couldn't really go wrong. I don't think it was consistent.
It was consistent. It's all right. There's better cigars for the money.
Yeah.
But, you can hand somebody a Cohiba and they're going to say yes, most likely.
Yeah, so. And it's just like liquor. There's better whiskey for cheaper than, some of the big name brands that run multi-million-dollar ads. And but it's got the recognition, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. But it's not a bad drink and not a bad cigar. So
right. Well, okay.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll pick you up next week.
Everybody have a good week.